Hello, I'm Kathy Chester, and this is Move It or Lose It, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, spirit, and soul.
Well, welcome to another edition, another show of our Move It or Lose It podcast. So today we've got my husband joining. Lance is joining me.
Hello.
And we've got our guest today. So we've got Julie Stamm and we've got her significant other, Adam, who's joining. And we're going to talk about a lot of things today. So I have a feeling this could be definitely a two-part, but I'm so excited about this interview. I do realize I say that every time, but I'm very picky about who I interview. And this was a very exciting interview for me because I loved watching all of the funny things that you guys have on Instagram and on YouTube, and the funny ways that you interact with each other, and just the way that you make MS funny and you make it look not so horrible. So before we get into how we do this together, Julie, I want to talk to you about your diagnosis. And I know that I've seen other interviews that you had put together. And I know that you had the unfortunate ick of having a long time before you were actually diagnosed, and the misdiagnosis and all of that. So you're finally diagnosed at what year?
I was at 2007, January, so it will be 15 years.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it this morning that it'll be 21 years that I've had it. So,
Wow.
yeah, so if I had a baby when I was first starting my symptoms, they'd be able to drink now. So, yeah, so it took a really long time to get diagnosed, and it was hard, and I deteriorated, and I have so many regrets.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone now they need to be better advocates for themselves because it shouldn't have taken that long.
Yeah, for sure. But back then, I think it was difficult because you didn't know how to advocate for yourself. You didn't know what to say, and we didn't know what was happening, and nothing made sense. Our bodies were just not acting right. And I don't know where you were, but I didn't even though I had family that had multiple sclerosis, my aunt had already passed. So I couldn't ask her, like, hey, when you were first diagnosed, what did it look like? So I really didn't have that ability to ask a lot of people that had it or were willing to share about it. So did you feel that way, that you just didn't have a lot of people to talk to about it?
And it wasn't like now we can just Google it, put your symptoms
Right.
in. Honestly,
You mean Dr. Google?
like, yeah, WebMD was the one that was like, it's either MS
Yeah.
or AIDS or you're dying. It was like all these
Right.
like things. I was like, I don't know what's happening. And then I had spoken with someone that had MS,
Okay.
just about my symptoms, but because they weren't normal first symptoms, she was like, it's probably not that. So I kind of just cut it off my list of
Right.
things that it could be, and it turned out it was MS.
Right.
And now I know that it varies so much from person to person.
Right.
But I think back then I just didn't know, and it's just such a different disease. And I'm grateful that I didn't have a computer at home, so I can go down that rabbit hole of like,
Right.
this is going to be the worst thing in the world.
Right.
But I appreciate the resources that are there now for people that are newly
Oh
diagnosed.
gosh, yeah.
And the treatments. I mean, there were only 3
Yes.
options back then, so
Yeah. I think when I was diagnosed, there were 2. It was because they had already taken one off. So it was Clopixin or it was the Avonex.
Okay.
So you could do Rebif, but that wasn't one that was offered to me. So it was the 2 of those, and it was, the glossy pamphlets. And I always say, imagine a cardiologist. Like, my husband went to the cardiologist and they weren't giving him glossy pamphlets. Which one do you think is the prettiest? What would you like to get on? So it just always shocks me that MS is one of the only diseases that you go in and they're like, what would you like? Well,
Yeah.
when I get my degree, I'll come back and I'll decide. So it is one of the terrifying things about MS is that it's growing like mad. And yet we still don't have that, that relationship a lot. When I teach with my MS clients, when I teach movement and exercise, they'll ask them a question and they will have no answers from their neurologist. And I'm just like, like, how is this still happening? So, so you did find a neurologist. You found a neurologist.
I actually found, so I had gone to every possible doctor you can think of, gastroenterologist, urologist, every doctor. And finally, the office that I worked for, they said that I needed to figure out what's going on because I was missing so much work. So I went to a psychologist. Because this was like, I was down to, I wasn't depressed, but I was like, I'm 97 pounds. I'm 5'7". I shouldn't be 97 pounds.
Right.
Like, is this in my head? No one could figure out what was going on. And so I went to that doctor just being like, am I crazy? Like, what is going, like, could this be? And he was like, no, you have something going on. You're not depressed. You're fully aware of what's happening.
Right.
And so I went to a geriatric doctor because they've seen everything. They've seen everything in life. And I was like, this is the last. I had seen a neurologist and they didn't even order an MRI.
Really?
Yeah. So then the geriatric doctor ordered the MRI and that was, you have MS. And I was like, well, wow, I wish we would have done that when the first neurologist I saw.
I'm sorry. It still stuns me when like not even a lumbar nothing, just.
Yeah. And I would have done anything at the time. I would have been like, slice me open because I had every test.
Right.
Everything. Except for that MRI. And
it is very frustrating when they don't do the test and it's like, then you really feel like it's in my head, but I know that I don't feel well. I know that I can't do the things that I could do. So something's most definitely wrong.
Yeah.
And it is, and I'm sorry you had to go through all that. So
I am too. And I hope that like by doing this and by us talking that more people don't have to go through it.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I skipped out of that office with a diagnosis. I was so happy to have an answer. Like,
I read that you had said that you felt vindicated finally.
And
you
valid.
That you finally felt like I can now, like you wanted to go ahead and ASAP, you wanted to start advocating because it was like, I finally have an answer. I know what I have and I can start sharing this because it is always been my desire. And I've always been able to share with our younger diagnosed patients that are terrified and have no idea what to expect. And that's always been big on my heart. And that was also a big part of me wanting to do the podcast is
I love it. And you're helping people.
Thank you. It's just places they can go when you're first diagnosed and you're afraid. And, rather than seeing an arm out with like blood and IVs, but to see healthy people and that this doesn't mean that life is over and that you can't do things. And I just felt like this was so important to show that, some days really suck, but there are lots of days that you can do some amazing things. And
it's important that we change that initial image that people fear because that's not what the disease is anymore. Like you just started Ocrevus. That's a very effective drug at stopping progression.
Right.
And so that wasn't available then. And look, you're still doing amazing. And now you just started it. So it's like, three things are ahead. I mean, and it's not it's in the spotlight. It's not a sexy disease, but right now MS is in the spotlight. So it's our turn to like run with it. We have to use it while it's on us.
Absolutely. That's why it was like, no more waiting. I mean, I actually took my gym. I had a gym in the local area, took it down and now have it so that it's a smaller space with all the COVID stuff. Who knows what's going to happen? And I've now built it so that I can still do classes, very small classes, but it is now set up for my MS and my autoimmune clients. And I can Zoom with them. And, I think with 2020, and I asked you that question too, what did it make us do? And I know for me, I slowed down a lot and I thought, if I'm living the rest of my life and my goal is to lift, excuse my mouth, but lift 20-year-olds' boobs up and their butts, or do I want to finish out helping the clients that I can't get to? and that I've now had this community with all through COVID. And I mean, we had such an opportunity to really connect with other doctors and other patients and other advocates. And so it really, changed my focus and really helped me decide, what I wanted to do. How would you say it changed your focus?
A lot. I was telling Adam yesterday, well, first it made me reassess who is important, who I want to allocate my time for. I love so many people. I have so many friends, so many good family members. I mean, it's such a wide network, but I was overdoing it. And I think I was just constantly, every day, there's someone you have to see, there's a million phone calls you have to make. And now I just reprioritize. Like if I'm dreading something, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm just going to be like, I'm sorry, I can't make it today. You don't even need an excuse.
Right.
Adam's mom taught me that. It's like, you could just say it's not going to work, and you don't have to explain.
Adam's mom.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Such good advice, because I always would be like, oh, I can't make it because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But they don't need the X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's just not going to work. And that's period. End it. Because otherwise then you'll start making a new date for it.
Oh yeah.
But the thing that I was thinking about with COVID is that with a chronic illness, it comes about all of a sudden, and it's similar to COVID. It's just like this came about all of a sudden. And so normal, healthy people are now living a chronic illness life.
Yes.
You're realizing the limitations. You can't go out and do everything you want to do.
Right.
You have to adjust, and you have to take medicine that you don't necessarily want to, but like it's just, it really, it changed. I hope that more people saw the limits that are imposed on them for hopefully this short, it's been a long period, COVID.
Right.
But in terms of us, this is chronic. Ours isn't going away. Yeah. At least with COVID, people have the hope that there's an end in sight. Yeah. So I hope that they see this as a glimpse into other people's lives and give them a little more empathy.
I do pray so. I think I was a little bit more optimistic in the beginning. And then towards now that I'm seeing like the craziness of the wanting to bust into the gyms and you just all the stuff, the rudeness, and I'll go into that later. I have podcasts I'm going to do about, we were on the, just flying, and I had to do a wheelchair, and I was like, wow, this really didn't change people's perspectives on things. I feel like we're at a stage now that there's even like more anger, and it's just like, how did all of this not make you appreciate that you're alive, and that your family's alive? So it is flustering, but I would say in agreement with you that, we've had to learn to take shots, inject things that hurt, that don't feel good, that make us sick. And we've had to learn to calm down. I know that you're very energetic like I am. And so you just can't. And so we've learned to kind of settle. And so for us, I think for me, I used it as a real ability to help my clients and others. Like, it's okay just to settle for a bit, because we do have to do this to get rid of this whole global thing. Yeah. So
it's, it's a long-term, we have to think, we have to think about the long-term outcome. So
exactly. So, how did this affect your family with Jack and stuff? So how old is he?
He's 5. So he wasn't born. It's funny because I was married, when I was diagnosed. And I stayed in that. I think people fall in and out of love, and I had fallen out of love with I feel bad that I did, but I fell out of love. And I stayed in that relationship for 2 years longer than I should have because of MS. Like I should have but I felt like, oh, how am I going to tell someone about it? I was really nervous. Yeah. And I met Adam 9 years ago, my first night out, my first single night out. And, he makes me happy every single day. And we have a 5-year-old son, and that's what life's about. And the best thing about him, like when I told him I had MS, he was like, okay. And then my biggest hurdle was I was always so scared to tell him I have to use catheters. That was like my biggest fear. Like, how is he going to respond to that? And he was like, well, some people need glasses, and they're kind of the same thing. And I was like, I love this guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have a question for you, Adam, and I know we're going to talk more later.
Mhm.
How was it so easy for you to accept the MS, her telling you she had MS? Because a lot of guys, I know this from experience of hearing my patients will say that, and then that's it.
Right. One of the first things that I asked, well, when she told me the catheter thing was, is it okay? Does that affect me? Do I have to do something?
Right.
And, we had just met in a bar. So my real question was, does that affect sex? And she was like, well, no. And I didn't, she was like, no, you don't have to do anything. Like, okay.
Yeah.
then what? What am I going to sit here, feel sorry for myself and run?
Right.
Or, because she was hot. She is hot.
Was?
It is.
It was 9 years ago. It was cute, but
I think you're
Yeah,
still
so-
pretty damn hot.
For that later.
I think you're still damn hot. You're good.
Oh, well, thanks.
Damn.
I'm glad someone does. No, I'm just kidding.
No, so I love that.
Yeah, it didn't cross my mind to run or do anything like that. It's,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was a moment of vulnerability, and
Yeah.
you see that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So you guys have been together for how many years now?
9.
coming up on
9 years.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now I want to go into some of the bigger accomplishments with you. You wrote an amazing book. So I want to talk about that. So before we go into that, what inspired you? First off, how cognitively can you write? Because that is my biggest thing is
Well, it's a children's book, so
I don't think I can write that. So what inspired you to write a children's book? What was that about? Explain that to me.
So I have a lot of cognitive issues just from MS.
Mhm.
So I started when my son was born, I started writing him letters,
Okay.
a Google document. So I write him his first word, first steps, major things that I want to remember, how much he weighed, all those things. But I also wrote down the days that I cried myself to sleep because I felt like I failed him. Like my legs didn't work or didn't make it to the bathroom or didn't do that, all those things. That were the days that I said, I should not be a mom. I shouldn't. This isn't fair to him. And then I just talked to him and I was like, hey, what did you think about this day? Just to hear what he remembers. And he
Right.
was like, oh, train day. And then he saw all of my worst days as great days. So it transformed, it kind of made me forgive myself for those
Yeah.
moments because I realized that these weren't ruining his life. I was
Right.
I was putting that on him. I was putting
Right.
that,
you were
so
deciding.
I was
for him.
deciding for him why
Right.
I was a letdown. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
he didn't see me that way.
Where you were taking on that guilt.
Yeah. And
Like
it
we
was
take.
every day. And it
Yeah.
would repeat and just talking to him and transforming, how listening to him, it really did change.
Yeah.
I started listening more. I always
Right.
talk to him, but I started listening more on the things
Mhm.
that I felt so guilty about. And then, so I looked for resources. So I went
Yeah.
to all the societies, to all the foundations and said, what do you have for children? What's out there? And I didn't find anything I would read to my
Yeah.
son. Like, we're not going to talk about demyelination to a 5-year-old
Right,
or 4-year-old.
right.
We're not going to talk about any of these major things or like mom's mood swings or have this negative outlook.
Right.
It is not going to be that.
Right.
So there were none from the child's perspective. There was one from the child's perspective that talked about a grandmother. So it was a very short period that they feel it. It's not an everyday life
Right.
situation.
Right. Right.
So I wanted to tell the story from his point of view,
Right.
on those days. And I always tell people when they read it, adults should read it first because they can see the struggle that the
Right.
mother and how hard she's working.
Yes.
But the children don't see that. It's just an
Yeah.
uplifting, unapologetic approach, not focused on MS. It's focused on the resilience of the mother and son together.
I love that. I
Thank
really
you.
love that. I think it's so important because I have 2 adult sons. So together we have five kids together and they're all adults. And so having 2 sons that, back then my kids are adults, there was nothing. I had an amazing neurologist who would take time with my kids and talk to them when they were nervous. He was just phenomenal. He would explain to them why they had to get the flu shot for mom, and that, you know, she wasn't trying to hurt you, but this is why, and kind of
Yeah.
explain to them, you know, in their terms of what they could understand. I was so appreciative of that, because there wasn't the things back then they would have. I remember older people coming up to them and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I have a cousin or an aunt who had MS. She passed, but I'm sure
Right.
your mom will be fine." I'd be like, "What did they
Why
say?
would you say
So
that?
why
Yeah.
would you say that to a kid?" So, you know, they'd come home, and back then I was on chemotherapy. So it was so easy for them to look at me and say, I could see her dying because she's all shades of green and her hair's coming out. And so it was a scary time, and having a book, you know, that like that would have been so comforting, you know, for
I
them
wish
to.
I would love for them to read it now to see how they feel about it.
I'm actually going to have them read it,
Oh,
and I want
good.
their
I would love
feedback,
that.
so
Yeah,
they
please give
can
it to
kind of
me.
talk. Yeah,
That would be
I want
awesome
them
because
to see how they would have felt as kids if they would have been able to read it.
yeah, let me know. That would be really
I
good because
will.
I'm working on book 2 now. So
I
any feedback
heard.
is welcome.
So book 2, can you talk about that one?
I can't talk about it yet,
Okay.
unfortunately, but it will
That's
be
okay.
here next fall. So
Okay.
but
So
thank you.
anything else? Do you do you do blogging, right? Or no?
No, I don't. I'm
You
a
don't.
patient advocate. Yeah. So
Okay.
we have a support group for newly diagnosed. And we focus on trying to get newly diagnosed comforted and to know that this isn't what they fear, and just trying
Yes.
to make it. And especially, he's really supportive to care partners. So
Yeah.
he has his own thing. He likes to talk to men and women that
Yeah.
support people, because even though everyone says this, even though he doesn't have MS, he lives with it.
Right.
My limitations
Yes.
are his. It's,
Yeah.
you know, so it
tell
is
me about the
a lot to
support
take on.
group. When does that take place?
It's typically first Saturdays
Mhm.
of the month, and we just do a Zoom.
Okay.
And then, so we'll typically have a guest on that sort of
Alright.
just drives conversation in different ways. And we say it's for newly diagnosed, but it's really
Everyone, yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
It just
Yeah.
sort of that drives the conversation of,
Yes.
you know, makes the questions easier of when you were diagnosed, you
Right.
know, it makes people not feel better necessarily, but
Yeah.
have a different perspective that's
Yes.
hopefully a little more positive. And we do, so we'll have typically one guest, and then that we'll stream that, and then we turn off the recording, and we'll do like a happy hour, actually. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, everybody gets to turn on their cameras if they want to, and if they don't,
Yeah.
you know, they get to ask the questions, or just some people just come for the socialization. You
Yeah.
know? And it's
Yeah.
it is interesting because COVID really drove that, because she
Yeah.
was doing patient advocacy in
Yeah.
person all the time.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, it sort of took a pause when Jack was born.
Right.
Just because, you know, if you know those kids are hard, you know, but once that happened, it was like, okay, we should sort of start getting into it.
Yeah.
And it was one night, I think, you know, because Jewel is a champion for the MS Society.
Yeah.
And so we did a
So
Zoom.
Julie, explain what that means for people who don't know what it means to be a champion for the MS Society.
So I speak at a lot of their galas and events and I work their finish line and events to try and help people understand what MS looks like and let them see the reality of it. And I think being a champion there is to not to be present and to be able to help others. And I think, you know, they have so many volunteers, they have so many people, but I think to do something to give time and try and transform how the disease is seen is really big for them. And I appreciate the highlight that they put on me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's awesome. I think there's so many of us that can do that, and we just don't know about it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put that at the bottom of the show notes, and how you can do that, because I think so many keep knocking over the mic. It's a new mic, and I'm just not used to it. And I'm Italian, so my hands are
That's me too. I have to sit on my hands.
right. So, but we'll put that at the bottom of the show notes so that people can see that. Because I think so many people want to, but they're not sure. They're nervous. Like, do I really have anything to offer?
Start by volunteering.
Yes.
Even if you work, you know, like a finish line at MS Bike, because MS Bike is one of those events that people don't necessarily ride for MS. They ride because you can ride through the streets of New York City or any city without traffic. And it's a pretty cool
Yeah.
But that's really for bikers that don't
Yeah.
necessarily know about MS. So it is good
Right.
to be at the finish line to be like, well, this is what you're riding for. Here's
Yeah.
the cause. And
Yeah.
it's important. I think, and I think it empowers you when you work these events, even if it's just
Yes.
like for a half hour, just
Yeah.
to see everything. And there's
Absolutely.
so much more good than there is what you fear. So
Right. I agree. Absolutely. I think more of us need to be out there. As you said, this is the time. This is now the time for us to be quiet. We finally have a voice. We have people want to know. And so it's like, yes, finally, you want to know about multiple sclerosis? Let us tell you what it is. So,
and even like, honestly, now's the time. But I do think reach out to pharmaceuticals. If you're on a specific drug, reach out to the pharmaceutical.
yeah,
This is your time to become an advocate. You could be a
Yes.
speaker at one of their events.
yes,
And the beautiful thing that I've had over the last 2 years is that they're hearing the patients now. They're putting the patients
yes,
before the physicians. They want
Yes.
to hear what side effects we're willing to tolerate. They
Yeah.
want to hear what matters most to us, the end
Right.
user. So this is your time. And they're
Yes.
not going to necessarily come to you. You
Yeah.
have to power move it and reach out to your pharmaceutical and
Absolutely.
say, here's why I am worth you investing
Yeah.
in me being one of your sponsors.
I love that. So what are you on right now, Julie?
I'm on Rituxan,
Okay,
which
you're
is
on
it's like
Rituxan.
the same thing as Ocrevus, only
Yeah,
yours is human derived and mine is mice derived.
okay.
I think that's the only difference.
Yeah, so
Most
how are you
scientific way to
feeling? How are you feeling on that?
I love Rituxan.
You've been on
yeah.
that for how long?
I was on it before Jack, and then my
Okay.
insurance denied it. So that's how I got pregnant. Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I got
Wow.
pregnant. And then I finally have been back on it for 5 years.
Okay. So yeah, so this
Because
is
you
my
reached out.
second. Yeah, exactly. There you go. You reached out and
Yeah.
that's what we have to do. And sometimes when cognitively I'm not there, that's when he comes in and I'm like, it's not there, but
Which is a good
Ocrevus-
segue, because I have a question for Adam
Okay.
to kind of go back to your support group.
Yes.
How would people find you?
I guess pretty much Facebook is
Yeah, we're
is kind of
Facebook,
the
right?
format that we chose. I think we were streaming to YouTube as well, but there was just no traffic generated to it. There was
Okay.
like,
Okay,
This is
so is it a
until
page
gets to
or is
be-
it a group?
It's a page.
It's a page.
It's a
Okay.
page.
It's a
Okay,
page.
so,
Yeah.
It's voices
what
of
is-
MS.
okay,
We'll put it on the bottom of the show
Oh,
notes
Sure.
too, for sure, because I want people to be able to see it. I mean, I think it's a huge thing that
Yeah.
that we need more of the support groups and like I said, I lead a lot of the exercise for MS. What they think they couldn't do and what they can do, whether it's seated or standing. And I'll do some, free Zooms, and I'll do some that cost. And a lot of times, I mean, it'll be, not as much exercise because their anxiety is here, and we'll have to do some breathing first. And that's one of the things that kind of pushed me away from working with some of the other big names that were out there, because it was just like, get the money, get it out, turn it over. And I'm like, that is of no interest to me. I
Right.
want to see you better. I don't want to see you anxious and like getting the moves out. I want to see your mind focused on what you're doing. And if you're anxious, your mind's not connecting with anything. So I want you to breathe and let's settle down first. And so I think that I love what you're doing with the support group. And I think more of that needs to come, because there's so much misunderstanding about what we have, what we can do, what we can't do. So I love that. So I definitely want some more information about, so you guys do this together, correct?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to have you on as a guest
Yeah, for
that
sure.
you would love. And we usually have about 15 actual during the event join.
Yeah.
But then we get hundreds of views after. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when Julie Gaines was on, we've had like Damian Washington, all the major names
Yeah.
come on.
I have
so-
Damien tomorrow.
Oh my gosh,
Do you?
can you tell him that you had me today?
Wait,
'Cause
I have so many people I have to tell him. I
You
finally
have-
called him. Yes, let me write it down. So
Yeah.
wait,
I just had a meeting with him this morning.
do you have a nickname?
No,
he
he
calls
knows
you?
it. You could just tell him.
Because
Yeah.
he calls everybody a nickname and he's
I
so
know,
funny.
it's like Stamm on the gym, or he
Yeah,
calls me
yeah.
very
He's
different
so
things.
funny.
Yeah.
He made me laugh because I was getting nerved up about something and he was like, you just need to chill. And I loved it. And he just gave me some like really good. I'm like, thank you. So it was
Yeah, he's fun.
I just
He's
love
fun.
him.
Me
So I'm
too.
excited about that.
Yeah, that's good. It's tomorrow. Tell him that I said hi and stop.
I
following him.
will.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I did Montel Williams, and then the day later he did Montel. We keep
Oh,
following
that's
each other.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do Montel. I think too, that's the big thing is that I had to get over being afraid to ask. And so I was really challenged to like, you're doing a lot of work. Don't be afraid. Ask. They
Yeah.
want to talk. They want to share their story. So that was, just getting over, just asking and saying, I want to know more of your story. And so does everybody else in our community. So
Yeah, it's awesome. Keep doing it. I mean, it's really important.
yeah, thank you. I'm sure that I have a feeling we'll be doing some other things together.
I definitely.
Yeah. So moving on with your stuff after diagnosis. So now you're living in Colorado, which I would assume would be great weather-wise. Michigan
Yes, we
is
just moved here, so.
okay, because
Yeah.
Michigan is really tough weather-wise.
Yeah.
So it's not a great place to live with MS. So I think Denver, or not Denver, but Colorado, I think just is a better. I know I always feel great when I'm there. So
Are you
hopefully
gonna
this
move?
is.
Maybe you'll move.
Oh gosh, I'd love to. My husband is in AV, so his business is booming right now. So
We're just based here in
happy
Detroit area,
cannabis.
so.
So cannabis just made his security company boom. So
Very nice.
There you go.
Well, they got that here.
that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. they
Rumor
did.
has it.
Rumor has
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I heard a
I
guy
only
say it one
can
time.
smell it as soon as I get off the plane. I'm like,
Yeah.
there we are. So,
Yep.
so now I kind of want to move into anything else, Julie, that you want to share about your diagnosis, what you've got coming up, solo stuff that you're doing.
I'm really, right now, the book is it's getting translated to different languages and stuff. So we're really excited for that and just trying to soak in the moments and we're getting such good feedback and a lot of people are using it to tell their children for the first time. So
I love it. So you're getting it
That's-
translated in different languages right now.
yeah.
Turkish.
Turkish just first one.
Turkish.
Yeah.
Turkish.
Well, they ordered 7,500 copies
An
and
initial
Wow.
one to
Yeah.
7,500,
Now I can't really help. I know a little Telugu, but not enough to like translate it.
I don't know any.
Yeah, they can make it say whatever they
yeah,
want, really.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. That's great.
It
That
just gives
just
you
shows
confidence
you.
that it gives you confidence that it's gonna, if
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who can get their book in Italian and French and German,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
Turkish is far down the list. So to start
Yeah.
with that gives you a lot
100%.
of confidence.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Which we knew would
I'm
happen
so
anyway.
thrilled.
Thank
I'm
you.
really excited about, I mean, that just gave me, I saw it and I was like, yes, so many people need that. And we've got so many young moms that I really need that. So I know a mom that I just, I'm going to be on hers. So I'm going to talk about you and about
Oh,
the book.
thanks.
So, so we'll definitely have that, all of that, obviously on the show notes. So now this will probably be our second part of the podcast. I'll have my sound guy. So now we're going to talk about advocating and how do we do this? How do we do MS and any autoimmune disease as a couple? So your significant other. So I want you to tell me, to start off, one of the most recent funny stories that you've had with an MS, kind of a blooper, I'll call it, that happened that you guys were like, oh geez, that you had to do it together.
I mean, I loved Halloween. No, because I had a glass of wine and he had a beer before we went trick or treating. And my bladder was holding up better than his. And I was like, I'm winning. So I felt like I won.
I did it for you, Bill.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? Did you get one of the cups that we have to use? Or did you just
No,
make
yeah.
it?
I was this guy. I was like, well, in New York, I wouldn't have minded just,
Yeah.
but here it was like, do I ask somebody?
Yeah.
Right. Like, can
Yeah.
I use your bathroom? Like, can I?
Yeah.
Well, one person had like chili going. They were like,
Yeah.
I was like, I do, but I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
that would be a bad
Right.
idea. Like, lo and
Yeah.
behold.
Right. I
Wasn't.
know. It was,
Um,
we ended up just passing candy out. So
Yeah, we had one trick or treater here.
Yeah.
So
it was
happened to be, like,
crazy.
yeah.
We didn't know what it would be like. And we finally just, we have a puppy. I have a therapy golden retriever, just she's new and crazy. But, it was for us, we decided, you know, it was the first time we lived in a building, that I ran the gym and we lived upstairs. So I looked into a therapy puppy for a while. And so we finally got a golden retriever. And so we stayed here and, oh my gosh, it was
And she was
hysterical.
dressed up like Wonder Woman, so now she needs therapy.
That's awesome.
But we ran out of all of our candy. I've never seen so many kids. It was really fun.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
And
I
my
love
kids
that.
are convinced that I love the golden retriever more than I ever love them. So all the kids are like, they're like, she has more clothes than we ever did. I'm like, oh my gosh, forget it. So
Yeah.
I love that Halloween. What would you say our last funny blooper would be?
Geez, I'm trying to think of one in particular.
So many with this
Gotta have
disease.
one.
I'll think of one.
Well, it's too late. I think one right now.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna edit this part out because that's what I did.
That's,
The part that I couldn't think of something.
you have that power. That's a lot
Well,
of
first,
power.
okay, so if you have a second one, or I want to know one of the worst things that happened lately that you were like,
I know that one.
Yeah. You're gonna, I'll
Um,
cry when I think about it.
So the other, like, cause it's, you know, Colorado is like very strange weather compared to what we were used to in New York. It's
Right.
like, you know, temperature overnight changes a couple of degrees, 10 at best. In Colorado, it drops a lot. Like it could be 30 at night and then go up to 80 during the day.
right, true.
And so one thing that we never really accounted for before was she went outside while the grass was still cold and her legs shut down.
Yeah.
Wow,
I didn't know
interesting.
that would happen.
It was, like pretty much collapsed,
Yeah, I
right?
couldn't.
Yeah,
And I was like, Jack, go get dad. 'Cause Mom.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully it was like right
that's-
outside in our lawn, but
right.
that was an interest. So now we got to get you slippers.
Yes.
Slippers.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
it is.
not a fun
It is
one.
interesting how you don't expect that temperature. We were in Austin and I'm thinking, you know, I had all warm clothes, like summer clothes,
Mhm.
and it got cold and I had to walk a little bit and my body just went bananas because the temperature changed. And you know, my husband, of course, you know, this significant other trying to save the day. I was calling Captain America, trying to figure out how to help me, how to fix it. And my whole body just kind of went into this like just shock where I couldn't walk. Same thing. My legs just kind of were like, we're done. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't talk. My body's just kind of shutting down. So those extreme temperatures are so much fun to go
I
in and
hate
out
it. I hate it. There's so much I hate about the disease.
Yeah.
So much.
Yes. I don't know about you. I would say that you get the biggest kick out of my bloopers when I say the wrong things.
Oh, yeah.
I
absolutely.
always, cause I'll like teach a class and I'll think I'm straight on, like I'm on with the words and I'm like completely off saying like a completely wrong thing. And I'm like, cool. And they're like, looking at me like, are you on crack? Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
All right, I do have a recent blooper.
Okay.
So Kathy runs her classes in a circuit. So there's a certain amount of stations, 6 stations, 5 stations, whatever
oh
it is.
yeah. Okay.
And so invariably we'll be in the middle of a workout and she'll explain all of what we need to do at each station. And then she's all right, everybody gets their stopwatch out and everybody ready to go. And then everybody will be standing there looking at her going, you know that you left out 2 stations.
And
Like,
like,
there's
no, I
6
didn't.
people and there's only 4 things that we're supposed to do here. So
I'm like, oh, stop, just go. I didn't do that. And they're like,
Stop whining.
all right,
Just do it.
somebody's right. Like, don't, you can't argue with the owner, but yeah, those MS moments. And then I get a look from like my best friend and my husband, like, I'm like, okay, I might have messed up. So,
We're gonna ignore that.
Never admit to
right, we'll just
beat.
ignore that.
We
So,
had moments like that with Jack because it
Yeah.
was early days when you're like, you know, the colors or whatever, and she held
Right.
up green and she was like orange. I was like, you know, you're lucky you're pretty. Yes, you know.
Right.
Or like,
Um,
what's the name of that animal?
You did it the other day.
Right,
It's like
right.
2 + 2 is 5 or
I
something.
know.
Oh.
It's not.
I don't think
well,
that's the
also-
disease though.
It is.
Yes. Because I remember that was one of my first things. So when my kids were little, one of the first things I remember happening is I would start to do homework with them and addition, subtraction, multiplication. I'd be like, you know, it's this. And they'd be like, Mom. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Move It or Lose It podcast, where you can again find us every Tuesday and also wherever you like your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Join us on that. And we can't wait to see you again. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests and working together. And as always, you'll hear us say at the end of every podcast, we are stronger together. So let's do it. Let's become stronger together.